Good afternoon. Welcome everyone and thank you for joining. Today we're diving into the science of aging and how it's no longer something reserved for billionaires and labs. We want to explore what it means to not only slow aging down, but to possibly reverse aspects of it using personalised, accessible, affordable interventions. My name's Amiga and I'm co-founder of the Wholeness Pod. Our goal is to make cutting-edge tech-led therapies like hyperbaric oxygen and cryotherapy more available to our communities and to make it more affordable and accessible as well. So all of these therapies assist in supporting your regeneration, stress reduction, as well as longevity and more. And joining us today is Dr. Sabina Hanoman-Singh, who is a family medicine consultant and trainer with special interest in longevity and regenerative aesthetics medicine. And she's also relocated to Dubai. Dr. Sabina, thank you for being here today. To start us off, could you just tell us a little bit about who you are and why you choose to dedicate your work to this field?
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction. And hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be here today. So I'm a family medicine consultant, which is what we are called in UAE, but in England, that's a general practitioner. So I began my medical career in 2013. So I've been a doctor for over 10 years. And I was drawn to general practice because of its holistic nature, seeing the body as one interconnected system. From the start, I was passionate about preventative medicine, which naturally led me on to longevity medicine. So the practice of not just adding years to life, but about protecting health span and the quality of those years. You may think, doctors already practice preventative medicine, but unfortunately in the NHS, we've got barely much time to do that. And also, it's funny that in medical school, there isn't really much nutrition or exercise spoken about or talked about. So it's surprising that we don't actually know a huge amount in the medical field. And then about 6 years ago, while I was training in aesthetics, I discovered regenerative medicine. And that focuses on repairing, replacing, and rejuvenating damaged cells. So to really help people feel and function their best, it's important to take the body as a whole system. So that's how I've got into longevity medicine. Sorry, I'm in the reception downstairs and I have somebody next to me. Hello. Okay. So bear with me. I think she's got some intellectual disabilities. So today I work at DISC in Dubai. I'm part of a fantastic multidisciplinary clinic. So from nutritionists who fine-tune your diet, to physiotherapists, chiropractors, psychologists who support mental clarity, stress resilience. These are all really, really important part of the team, and we need to work together to have a 360-degree approach for patient health.
Perfect, thank you. So you've got a great deal of knowledge and experience behind you, which is amazing. So let's go straight in. When we talk about aging, people automatically envision like grey hair, wrinkles, hunchback. But beyond the physical signs, what most don't actually realize is that aging starts at a cellular level, which means that it's something that's happening deep inside of our cells. So if we begin at the foundation, Dr. Sabina, what are the hallmarks of aging in simple terms?
Yeah, so the hallmarks of aging are basically the biological processes that drive aging. They were first outlined in 2013 and I believe had about 9 hallmarks at a time. Since then, there's been some added. And I believe on the screen now you can see the 12 hallmarks. I won't discuss them all today, but I'm basically going to talk about the primary ones and the ones relevant to our discussion. So on the first one there's genomic instability. That's a primary hallmark. Basically, DNA accumulates mutations over time, and that's from replication errors, toxins, excessive UV exposure, radiation, things like that. And these mutations disrupt normal cell function and increase the risk of disease like cancer.
Okay, so if I was to like give an analogy to kind of put it in simple terms, am I right in saying that it's basically, if we take, for example, an image that's been photocopied, and it's the same document over and over again, each copy basically picks up tiny smudges and typos. And if you leave the paper in the sun, for example, or spill something on it, that the damage starts to add up even faster over time. And then that basically makes the text become harder to read.
Yes, exactly. That's what DNA instability basically is.
Okay.
Secondly, we've got telomere attrition. It's another primary hallmark. So telomeres are basically the protective caps on the end of our chromosomes. And each time a cell divides, the telomeres can get shorter. And when it becomes critically short, that cell stops dividing, it can't function anymore. And then it lingers around as a senescent cell, which are basically cells that don't function very well, and they excrete like inflammatory signals.
Okay, so analogy again, the telomeres are like the plastic tips at the end of a shoelace, and it basically stops them from fraying. So with time, if those tips get a little bit shorter, once they start to wear down too much, the lace starts to unravel. And basically in our bodies, that means that the cell can't divide anymore and enters the sensing. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So I like the analogy. It's very good. So the epigenetic alterations is the third one you can see. So epigenetics refers to how genes are expressed. They're not the genes themselves. So are they switched on? Do they get switched on? Do they get switched off? And they don't actually change the DNA itself. Okay.
So if we think of our DNA kind of as like a sheet music of for symphony, and the epigenetics don't change the notes themselves, but they act like the conductor. And that's basically, okay, that's like deciding which instruments play loudly, which play softly, and which kind of stays silent altogether. It kind of results to the song being the same, but how it's performed can completely change the outcome.
Yes, exactly. And with age, this epigenetic regulation becomes faulty. So i.e. the conductor loses his skills, and it causes chaos, and it increases the risk of disease. So for example, a tumor suppressor gene can be inappropriately silenced or turned off, and then you can get more risk of cancer. Okay, the next one, and the final one of the primary hallmarks, is the loss of proteostasis. So proteostasis, basically cells need quality control to fold, repair and recycle proteins. And with age, this process is disrupted. So it leads to misfolding or clumped proteins, and that can lead to a lot of diseases.
Okay, so if we envision that kind of like a factory assembly line where every product has to be folded, packed, and packaged correctly. So when the quality control person comes around, they're checking whether they're perfect. The products are basically leaving the line perfectly. But with age, the system starts to break down, and that means that mistakes slip through and faulty products pile up and clog up the assembly lines.
Yeah, that is very true. So there are some diseases linked to these protein clumps in particular, and that's things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Huntington's, amyloidosis, cataracts, even type 2 diabetes as well. So as well as it being a hallmark in aging, it's a hallmark in a lot of diseases. Mitochondrial dysfunction is also a very hot topic at the moment. There's a lot of interventions coming out for it. So mitochondria is basically our energy factories. But they can lose efficiency with age and numbers with age. So they produce fewer units of energy, which becomes worse for our cells' energy, basically.
Okay. So if we kind of think about mitochondria like a power plant that supplies energy for a city, when it's new, it runs efficiently, it's generating lots of electricity with very minimal waste. And as it ages, it starts producing less energy and more pollution. And that's basically in our cells. Okay, so that means that we get less power to function and more damaging free radicals that stress the body. I feel like that's like a good way to kind of summarize that.
So basically the powerhouse of our cells, and it's really important. We need mitochondria for energy all around. Cellular senescence, I think I touched on that one, one of the previous hallmarks, but basically senescent cells are the cells that don't function. They accumulate in our tissue and they're not beneficial in any way. In fact, they secrete inflammatory signals, which then damages the surrounding tissue. So we don't want them to just be sitting there, and we're looking at ways of trying to remove them.
Okay. So again, an analogy, if we kind of like imagine a neighborhood where some houses have like become abandoned and run down, they basically don't get repaired and they don't contribute towards the community. And even worse, they start leaking waste and letting off a smell and causing problems for the nearby houses. So that's what senescent cells do to the body. They stop working properly, they don't divide, and they release inflammatory signals, which are basically harmful to surrounding cells.
Yes, exactly. So as I mentioned, there are drugs being developed in particular called senolytic medications, and they're developed to basically target and remove these dysfunctional cells. Basically what the council should be doing with those houses.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there's a couple more I'll just discuss. Stem cell exhaustion. So stem cells are built-in repair system. There are naive cells that haven't specialized into anything yet, and they are there ready to go to regenerate tissue that's been damaged, etc. But with age, again, they lose their regenerative capacity and also the numbers.
Okay, so stem cells are kind of like a group of enthusiastic medical students who are basically like fresh out of university who don't yet have a speciality in their field. So they can kind of step into whatever department is most needed. It could be like cardiology, surgery, neurology. And then aging is like having a shortage of these students available. So there aren't really enough to fill in to keep the system running smoothly. Is that?
Yes, exactly. That's a good analogy. Okay, good. And then finally, inflammaging. So inflammaging is basically a chronic low-grade sterile inflammation, and with age that's what can occur in our bodies. It normally comes from things like the senescent cells that I mentioned, immune system changes, gut microbiome, which I won't go into too much today, but it is one of the hallmarks, and mitochondrial dysfunction.
Okay, so yeah, that's quite self-explanatory. But is all inflammation bad, or is some good and some's bad?
No, certainly not. Acute inflammation in response to an injury or an infection is very much needed. It brings in those healing powers that we need. But if we start having an overactive inflammation or a chronic inflammation that's lasting longer than it's needed, that's when we start having damage to the body.
Okay. So why does understanding these hallmarks matter when we think about living longer and healthier?
So age is the single greatest factor for almost risk factor, for almost every chronic disease and for functional decline across the human body. So from cardiovascular disease to neurodegenerative disorders, virtually everything is tied up to the aging process. So I've given some examples already, but cancer with DNA instability, Alzheimer's with loss of proteostasis, and so on. But interestingly, it's not formally classified as a disease itself within the ICD. So it's not, well, I mean, we are starting to recognize it and we are starting to intervene, but I think we do need to treat it as a disease if it is the greatest risk factor. So we have got lots of therapeutics and interventions that we can do, and there's a lot more in research points that can target these biological mechanisms of aging. Okay,
great. Thank you. Thanks for breaking all of that down. Hopefully that's a bit more understandable to everyone that's listening in, if you don't already know. So that leads us to touch on the therapies that we offer at the Wholeness Pod, and how basically they support some of your cellular hallmarks. So many people use our therapies to support regeneration process, and I will attach the link right now in the chat that will show the case studies that are on this screen for you to read in a bit deeper. So we'll start off with hyperbaric oxygen therapy. That would typically be a therapy of choice for mitochondrial health and stem cell activity. And that is basically about how your body, how well your body's tiny cell batteries and repair helpers work together to give you the energy and fix the internal damage. And what hyperbaric oxygen therapy does is it lengthens your telomeres, which reduces senescent cells and improves mitochondrial function. It helps with all of those things. With cryotherapy, that targets inflammation and cellular stress. And this is when your body's defense system gets overworked, causing cells to feel stressed out instead of calm and healthy, which also contributes towards aging. And then if we're thinking about the far infrared sauna, that's used a lot for detoxification and cardiovascular circulation. This is how your body clears out waste and keeps blood moving, so fresh nutrients and oxygen can reach every single part of you. And then if we're talking about red and blue light therapy, that will support cellular repair. And this is your body's natural way of fixing broken or damaged cells so that they can basically work properly again. And that's just touching on some of the case studies that are currently out there. Please feel free to read further with the links in the chat once you get a moment. So Dr. Sabina, can you suggest any therapies or remedies that you would offer a client looking to support cellular hallmarks instead of the ones I've already mentioned?
Yes, definitely. So it's important firstly to remember that all longevity interventions require further research, especially large-scale, long-term studies. So before we can say with certainty how effective they are, they do need that more research. But saying that, the interventions we'll be discussing or have discussed already have been supported by a large amount of peer-reviewed evidence. So I'll highlight the things that need more research, basically. When I make recommendations, I focus on two key factors. So first, whether the existing research largely supports the concept, and if whether or not larger trials are still needed. And then is the intervention itself carrying a risk? Does it have a significant risk? So the most promising strategies are those that combine a credible scientific evidence with minimal downside. So in terms of the ones that I definitely would suggest, which are basically, apart from obvious diet, exercise, avoiding toxins, preventing and trying to prevent disease, I would suggest caloric restriction. So caloric restriction is probably one of the most robust interventions for longevity. There was a calorie trial, which looked at non-obese adults and found multitude of benefits, including reducing inflammation, oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, the proteostasis loss, and immune decline. So basically what calorie restriction does, it shifts our cells from the growth focused state to repair and recycling mode. And doing that triggers autophagy, basically the cleaning up of damaged and senescent cells. It maintains protein quality and mitochondrial function, and it improves overall cellular health. So definitely looking at caloric restriction, especially with a nutritionist's advice or guidance, would be beneficial. Probably not for those that are young children, obviously adolescents that need to grow, and pregnancy, obviously, because you need the nutrients for these types of people. Intermittent fasting is also very useful. It's similar in that the long windows of fasting means that nutrient signals pathways are changed, and then it basically improves autophagy and stress resistance and mitochondrial health, as well as glucose regulation and insulin resistance. The other things I would advise is not for everyone. Obviously, you have to do a consultation, but what's really promising is metformin and rapamycin, but I'm not going to recommend rapamycin at this moment in time because I think it needs some more studies. So these basically mimic calorie restriction and fasting by targeting the nutrient sensing pathways. So it switches the cells into repair and recycle mode, and again, good for autophagy, reducing inflammation and improving mitochondrial function. There's Also, other benefits to metformin in particular, because obviously it improves insulin resistance or sensitivity, I should say. It reduces cellular senescence and impaired intracellular communication. So both have a lot of studies going on at the moment. However, they need more to classify them as anti-aging drugs. Metformin, though, I've been using for over 10 years for diabetes, pre-diabetes, polycystic ovary syndrome. So I'm very comfortable with the safety profile. And I do recommend metformin as a longevity treatment as well because of that. Also, quite a hot topic at the moment is NAD+. So this is a coenzyme, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, and it's showing promising results in terms of DNA repair, energy production, obviously mitochondrial health, sirtuin activity, which again is part of nutrient sensing pathways, and stress reduction. So with NAD, we know how important it is for every one of our cells, and again for its mitochondrial function, and we know that it declines with age. So it makes sense that boosting these levels would be beneficial. But we do, as I said, need a few more. We do need more research to actually show the effectiveness of it. It can be taken either orally as precursors, like with NR, nicotinamide riboside, or NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide. And there are more studies for the oral intake consistently than actually the IV and subcutaneous methods. But some people will argue that actually taking it IV or subcutaneously will bypass the metabolism. So we're still in the studying stages to see which way is the best way of taking it. We have to screen patients really well. Then it's again not for everybody. For example, there is some suggestion that actually it can promote cancer cells. So again, we need to make sure that the patient is free from any cancer and certain conditions. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, sorry, just adding on what you were saying, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. Also, I'd like to mention it's no point just giving it alone. We need to get the basics right first, the foundations solid, and this is more like an icing on the cake. So it should be for patients that are already fit, and they're not too sensitive to medications, things like that. And we should also be doing it alongside other interventions, in particular, things that will reduce the NAD consumption in the first place. So we want to get rid of or reduce toxins and pro-inflammatory substances. And also with interventions that boost the salvaging pathways, the recycling of NAD. So that would be something called such as NAMPT activity. So nutrient sensing regulators, like doing the caloric restriction, the intermittent fasting, the metformin, adequate sleep, polyphenols like resveratrol. These are all things that will basically help recycle the NAD in the first place. So alongside boosting the mitochondrial health and the NAD in the first place, we need to do these things. And then the other one I wanted to discuss was spermidine. It's got a bit of a funny name, but it's a naturally found polyamine, which can be found in things like wheat germ, fermented soy, mushrooms, legumes. And it helps, it's showing promising effects with epigenetic changes, impaired proteostasis, mitochondrial dysfunction, stem cell dysfunction, a few things actually, so which is why it's really interesting. I think also impaired intracellular communication and reduces inflammation. So it's still early on in the trials, but from food sources, it can be considered safe. So long-term research is needed more for the high dose supplements, but definitely if you're boosting it through your diet, that is a safe way of doing it, and it seems very promising. And then just to touch on a few other things that you should be keeping an eye out for are the senolytics, so the medications that are removing those senescent cells, autophagy enhancers like spermidine in the high dose supplements, things that might help fold proteins called chaperone inducers, mitochondrial function boosters like coenzyme Q10, which actually is quite a safe supplement to take. And one that I'm really excited about is stem cell therapy. So we know the stem cell effects when you directly inject into different organs and so on. But taking it as an IV therapy for the whole body, it still needs some research, but it's really quite promising because it's going to help with longevity, I think, in a very promising way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of research starting to come out about the stem cells, and it's becoming quite popular. So it's great to know that there's options out there. It's not like one or the other. People have a choice of what type of therapies or supplements they choose to take. So just following on from that, it's quite important to have like a personalized plan, because we often hear about, you know, one size fits all, but in reality, what works for one person won't always work for another. So why is personalization so important when it comes to longevity? I know you just previously mentioned about the variety of options that people have, but why is it so important to have a personalized experience and plan?
Yeah, so I mean, when we talk about personalized longevity, diagnostics are really the cornerstone. We want to design a plan that truly fits that individual. And first, we need to therefore measure where they are biologically, basically. So we usually begin with the basics, and that's assessing your baseline function. So the kidney, liver function, cholesterol, blood sugar, diabetes, thyroid, inflammation, and vitamin statuses, basically. And then we build on that with looking at your body composition. So you can use things like Embody, or the gold standard, which we have in our clinic, is DEXA scan. And that is because, you know, if your fat is too high a percentage, that could be linked to metabolic risks, inflammation, hormone dysregulation. If your muscle mass is too low, that could be linked to poor bone health, reduced energy, and metabolic health as well. So that would be an additional on top of your baseline. And then looking at preventative screening as well would be also worth mentioning, because if we are disease free, or if we catch it early at least, we can try and intervene earlier on and stop a lot of these problems affecting our longevity. So that includes cancer screening with tumor markers, possibly even full body MRI, but I'd say only in the right hands, because there will be a lot of possibly false positives and incidental findings that need to be interpreted properly by a professional. If we're talking about longevity specifically, then we could go much, much further. And this is where it gets quite exciting. So you've got things like genetic testing that looks at inherited predispositions to conditions. It also tells how you personally might metabolize nutrients and medications, and that will guide lifestyle and treatment choices. And then you've got epigenetic testing, which is particularly DNA methylation clocks. And this measures your biological age, or at least one marker of your biological age. And it gives us a way to have a baseline to track your progress, whether the interventions are actually working, actually slowing, or even reversing aging. But be mindful that's just one hallmark. We need to be doing it alongside other hallmarks, because, or biomarkers, I should say, because people age differently across different biomarkers. And then there's things like microbiome analysis. So you can check the gut microbiome, the skin microbiome, the vaginal microbiome. And in particular, the gut is central to immune health, metabolism, and even your mood, because of the brain-gut axis. So a disrupted microbiome is linked with higher inflammation, metabolic decline. So it's really important to map that out to understand how we can intervene as well. And then the other things that I like to add in would be a VO2 max test that can give us an indication on mitochondrial function, also how efficient your body is using oxygen, and it can also give us a metabolic rate to measure and track as well. You can also do an NAD levels, which would give us an indication of mitochondrial health as well. Telomere lengths, which is another hallmark, and many other things, hormones, immune testing, things like that. So the real goal here isn't just to test for the sake of testing, it's to identify which areas of your biology are aging faster than the others, and we can target interventions precisely to that area. So in other words, diagnostics allows to tailor a longevity plan to your biology, to your lifestyle and your goals, instead of just following a one size fits all.
Yeah, great, thank you. So that's very important that we all make sure that we're having the tailored treatment plans and having our personalised assessments. And those are things that we offer at the Wholeness Pod as well. For example, if you're starting with any of the therapies, you need to do an introductory session, and then you'll sit down and have a consultation with a wellness practitioner who can talk you through some of the therapies that we have, and then external things that we would recommend as well. So what if someone doesn't have the funds for these treatments or some of the supplements or other things that you've mentioned? Are there ways that they can still benefit from like the lifestyle, or for example from nature? So for example, if it's like hyperbaric oxygen therapy, if you can't necessarily afford to get more oxygen, you can do different things like walking in nature and doing breath work and like breathing through your nose, out through your mouth. Would you suggest any other natural solutions that can kind of assist with reversing aging or longevity?
Yes, I mean, I've obviously mentioned a couple already. So caloric restriction, intermittent fasting, I think they are the basics of longevity. They are so promising. Well, not promising. They are so well studied and proven, and they can actually help intervene with a lot of the hallmarks. So I mentioned nutrient sensing. It's all around mTOR, if you're interested, mTOR, and basically getting your cells to recycle and repair rather than just build. Autophagy, which helps clean up the cells, the senescent cells, mitochondrial dysfunction, proteostasis, inflammaging as well. So it's a really nice all-rounder, in my opinion. So that's definitely something that you should be doing, and under supervision from nutritionist or longevity doctor. Exercise is obviously really important. So getting your basics right. So it helps with mitochondrial dysfunction, stem cell absorption, loss of homeostasis, and strength in terms of the muscle strength. The lean muscle mass will help with bone health. It will help with metabolic regulation because it's a store of glucose and insulin resistance, etc. So it's again really, really important to do exercise correctly as well, not just aerobic, but you also need to be doing strength exercise as well. Sunlight. So everyone always goes on about too much sunlight, but you do need sunlight. In particular, it regulates your circadian rhythm, which is obviously important for regeneration, sleep. It affects nutrient sensing, it affects mitochondrial function. Vitamin D impacts the immune system regulation. So getting 20 minutes every day of sunlight without any sun cream, as long as you're not a high risk patient for skin cancers or etc., then it is really important to do that every day. Instead of cryotherapy, you could try cold water immersion. So obviously it has the benefits of cryotherapy, but probably less accurate than cryotherapy. But so you can reduce inflammation, cellular stress, and improve mitochondrial function through that way. And I think you mentioned breath work. So breath work, yes, really important. It's been shown to help with inflammation, stress-induced epigenetic changes, and immune system function. So this is like breathing through the nose in particular, because you get more nitric oxide through the nose, and breathing deeply will help stress. And then if you do short bursts, it can also help some regulation as well. But in particular, the parasympathetic pathways, which will help regulate stress, which then reduces cortisol, which can be negative for many, many reasons. It helps with immune function as well, as I mentioned. So there are a few other things that can be done coming through now. I won't go into all of it, but grounding, for example, walking barefoot, if it's safe, if you don't have diabetes, if you don't have any numbness in your feet, obviously. And sleep, obviously, sleep hygiene is really important as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. And these are all things that we can incorporate into our lifestyle right now. Like we can start it today, we can start it tomorrow, and just maybe like 10 minutes of walking or 10 minutes of exercise will have a long-term effect on us in a positive way. So just to summarize everything that you've just said, it's about testing across multiple biomarkers and understanding our baselines, or treating or understanding where it's needed, and basically maintaining over time, which is basically like the icing on the cake. So I'll go over to regeneration versus maintenance. Being in the wellness world, we often get asked, like, what's the difference between maintenance and regeneration? So let's kind of break that down, and we'll start off by talking about what maintenance and regeneration mean. So maintenance is about putting things into place to slow down the decline. It includes some of the things we mentioned earlier, like nutrition, sleep, exercise, stress management, and routine medical care. Whereas regeneration, that's about repairing or reversing damage that's already been done. This could include stem cell therapies, hyperbaric oxygen therapies, senolytics, and metabolic interventions. This is where the exciting part comes in again. We're not just talking about slowing decline anymore. We're actively talking about regenerating tissue, boosting performance, and building resilience. How far have we really come with regeneration, and what's actually available now, not just in theory? I know you've previously mentioned some, but it would be great to know like what the future holds for longevity and the growth of different types of therapies or supplements or
Yeah, so we are still progressing, but we are definitely touching regeneration now. So I mentioned a lot, so apart from the diet, exercise, avoiding toxins, improving sleep, actively regenerating cells comes down to all those hallmarks and reversing them. So caloric restriction, intermittent fasting, breathing work, supplements, including coenzyme Q10, resveratrol, omega-3, possibly spermidine. We're still keeping an eye on that. NAD, in particular, the precursors. Practices like hyperbaric oxygen therapy, whole body cryotherapy, medications like metformin, possibly rapamycin, but we're again watching that space. And then stem cell therapy, senolytics, all are very, very promising, but we're not quite there yet with the research.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Right, so that's been like a really great conversation. Just to kind of highlight a few takeaways, I just want to let everyone know that aging is not just external, it's definitely measured at a cellular level. And we now understand the many of the hallmarks that are driving it. So although someone may appear older, their biological clock could actually be a lot younger than yours. Personalization is the future of longevity. One size fits all no longer works. The best results kind of come from combining science-backed therapies, nutrition, lifestyle changes and interventions, which you could, like I mentioned, basically start today or tomorrow. So if you would like to discuss any further with myself or Sabina, we do have our contact details on the screen. But we would love to open up the floor for any questions that people may have. If you can either raise your hand or you can put the questions in the chat box, we will answer them as best as we can. Let's have to check if there's anything coming through. Don't be scared, feel free to ask. So we have, let's see, IIGs, which helps break down information. Okay, let's start with Dinah. Can you take yourself off mute, please?
Hello, thank you for a great webinar. I actually learned so much, and it was great to hear your take on like reversing aging and longevity. So thank you for that. I do have a question for Dr. Sabina. What are your favorite interventions at the moment?
Okay, I think I've probably banged on about them enough, but I think definitely getting the basics right. So looking at your diet, anti-inflammatory diet, a whole protein, low carbohydrate diet, having caloric restrictions in place, so basically not overeating, but also intermittent fasting window of about at least 10 to 12 hours, if not longer. That's one of my favorite things to do. Then I would say supplements. Sorry, I've got something coming on along my way. Supplements. So the NAD as an oral, coenzyme Q10, and omega-3s, vitamins if you are deficient. It's very tailored to the individual, but definitely supplementation if you can't get it from the diet alone. And then hyperbaric oxygen therapy and whole body cryotherapy I love, because it just focuses on so much of the hallmarks. And then metformin is also my personal favorite because I have polycystic ovary syndrome as well, so it's doing a lot for me.
Yeah, same for me.
Thank you for that. Quick one for Amika as well. What is your favorite therapy that you offer at the Wholeness Pod?
I would say mine would have to be hyperbaric oxygen therapy as joined with light therapy, just because it's a therapy that doesn't take much for you to do, but it has huge benefits and positive long-term effects that we've seen firsthand with clients who are not just wanting to achieve longevity, but are fighting various chronic health conditions. It's a therapy that has quite a broad spectrum and how it can support many things. So yeah, it would have to be hyperbaric and light therapy.
Amazing. Thank you, ladies.
That's okay. And then we'll just move over to Deborah. Can you take yourself off mute, please?
Hello. Thank you so much. So informative. It's unbelievable. I can't wait to get the recording and listen to it about. So yeah, my question is for Dr. Sabina. So we're in the UK, you're in Dubai. I guess all the things that you offer is available to us as well. And yeah, my ears pricked up at the calorific restriction. That's the thing that I need to is my focus at the moment. And I'm just thinking about getting some kind of dietitian that can give me help, or nutritionist, or I love the word longevity doctor, for like recipes. I don't know how do you work in terms of helping someone who's interested in that, and also intermittent fasting. I know that very individual.
So I'm very lucky that I work closely with a nutritionist at my clinic, and she basically will see the patient for nutrition advice. That she would understand the body's requirements, because we do not want to be neglecting the body of what it requires at its base. So we basically calculate that, and then we potentially go a little bit around that region, so that we are within the calories the patient needs to push into the longevity. And what she'll mostly do, because unfortunately people don't have the time to make the meals and to think about how much grams and this and that and what nutrients are going in what, she puts them on a meal plan. And in Dubai in particular, we've got so many options here, and I'm sure in England as well you do.
We do.
In fact, you do. Yes, you do. So she would then basically give the advice to the meal plan company, and then they basically keep it at those calories for the day, as well as any sort of personal diet restrictions you might have. They'll take into consideration, or if they need to increase this macronutrient and that one, etc. So that's the easiest way to do it. But if you feeling brave or want to do it yourself, certainly the nutritionist can give you the breakdown, and then you can go and organize your meals.
Yeah. When you say meal plan, do you mean like something you drink, or
no, just like literally you get food meals
proper
delivered.
Food.
Yeah, proper food.
Oh,
Can I just add on that? We also have two nutritionists that we work in partnership with over here, so I can share those details with you as well, Deborah, if you're interested.
Yeah.
And then with the intermittent fasting, the easiest way I find to do it is you eat dinner around 6-7 o'clock, and then you basically fast until maybe midday the next day. Again, it's very individual. Not everybody can fast depending on their health problems or how fit they are. But yeah, that's the best way of increasing your window as much as possible.
We'll give it a go. You never know. I might feel better.
Yeah, certainly.
was the most important meal of the day, but maybe it's not. Maybe
Debatable.
I'll go. Yeah, thank you.
That's okay.
You can also miss dinner, but that one I find a bit harder.
Yeah.
So whatever works for you.
Okay, yeah, I'll give it a well, just experiment, I guess. I'll
Yeah.
with what you suggested. Thank you.
No
Thank
worries.
you, Deborah. Are there any other questions? Or are we okay with that?
Got one more in the chat.
Okay, let me just have a check. So we know what managing the hallmarks of so we know that managing the hallmarks of aging can reduce risk of disease and prolong life, but how can we improve the quality of life?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, apart from reducing disease or reducing the risk of disease, which in itself would bring a lot of symptoms and distress, you will actually feel better through intervening in these hallmarks because one, for example, mitochondrial dysfunction, cellular senescence, loss of proteostasis, that can make you feel fatigued, tired, low energy, low mental clarity. So by reversing that, we will have increased energy, function, mental clarity. So that one is just a huge benefit in itself. You should feel stronger. Body should be more function better because if we reduce stem cell exhaustion, loss of proteostasis again, mitochondrial dysfunction, that would help our cells, our muscle cells in particular, to be at its best capacity, basically. So better strength. I mentioned mental clarity as well. That's a really big benefit, especially for people that are professionals and they need to use have a lot of focus when they're working, etc. Chronic pain should also be helped because we're reducing inflammation. We're getting rid of those dysfunctional cells which are just sitting in the tissue and the organs and potentially causing more inflammation and dysfunctional tissue. So chronic pain should go down, and inflammation, obviously. And even your appearance. I didn't really mention it, but I also do regenerative aesthetics. So helping our cells function better will also help with our skin. And you can also target these regenerative treatments directly at the skin as well. Things like exosomes, polynucleotides, certain amino acids to promote collagen and elastin. It's a talk in itself, but yeah, it's also helps with your appearance as well.
Okay, great. And just to add on that, I would also advise that doing these therapies as like early on as well, not just when it's too late in the stage, you know, oh, I'm too old and my joints can't move. It's about changing your lifestyle and incorporating these things so that it's preventative. Basically, aging well is a good experience and not seen as a negative thing. So I've just seen another question. Would you recommend PEMF therapy as a form of assisting with longevity? Okay, so I can answer that question. Yes, PEMF therapy can be a very helpful tool. For those who don't know what PEMF therapy is, it's pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, which is a stronger version of light therapy. And people have been using it for many years to support like longevity. So it supports your cellular energy circulation, it helps to control your inflammation, and it also is really, really good for benefiting bone, joint, and sleep health. So it's best to use it's best used as a complementary therapy alongside healthy lifestyle practices for optimal long-term health and vitality. So I hope that answers your question, Shani. Why do you think some ethnic groups look younger than others? I don't know if you would have the answer to that one, Sabina. Oh, I think she might have dropped off. Okay, sorry, I think Sabina might have had some difficulties with her internet. We will come back to that question because I don't have the answer for that, unfortunately, sorry. So thank you both, a very informative talk. I was just wondering, with supplements such as CoQ10, is this something that will require continued use, or will it support the body to start producing more energy itself? That's also a question for Dr. Sabina. Sorry about this. Let me just check if she'll be joining back. But any more questions, please put them in the inbox and we'll answer them as soon as. But I hope everyone has enjoyed the discussion today. I hope you've all found it very informative and we've been able to answer.
I'm so sorry, guys. My battery died. I just had to run and get a charger.
That's okay. No worries at all. I just had 2 more questions, which I don't know the answers to. One, if you do have the answer. So one was, why do you think some ethnic groups look younger than others in terms of age?
I mean, that's to do with your collagen, basically. So there are certain ethnic groups that produce more collagen, better collagen, and that's probably in response to the environments that historically they might have been accustomed to or living in. So yeah, I mean, that's a good area to look at how we can improve our collagen, but unfortunately we can't change that yet. Well, we can change it, but we can't change our genetics on that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then just one more, which I believe will be for you. Someone said, I was just wondering, with supplements such as CoQ10, is this something that will require continued use, or will it support the body to start producing more energy for itself?
Yeah, so it does support mitochondrial health, but you do need to continue to use it. Otherwise, with anything, if you take away the stimulus, the improvements will go back to baseline. But saying that, inevitably everybody will age at some point. So we're just trying to improve the function and slow down the decline as much as we can. But inevitably we will all age.
Yeah, we just need to age gracefully.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, no. And I'll just also add, if you are ever in Dubai, or you know anyone that lives in Dubai and they're interested in researching or learning more things in place in returns to longevity, check out DISC for advanced diagnostics and holistic longevity programs. Thank you so much, Dr. Sabina, for sharing your insights with us today. It's a lot of information and it was very easy to understand.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you so much. At the pod, we believe that longevity shouldn't be reserved just for the privileged, as I mentioned at the beginning. And this belief is what drives us. And it's why we partner with people and businesses like Dr. Sabina, bringing together medical expertise as well as accessible wellness therapies. And that's really important for our longevity journey. So let's continue the journey of aging, not just longer, but better. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. As I mentioned, yeah, thank you. As I mentioned, the call is being recorded and it will also be uploaded onto YouTube. And once that's done, we will share the link with everyone who's joined today. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.